Hey, this is DM David from Fantasy Pants, and you are listening to Tale of the Manticore.
The following podcast is intended for a mature audience. Listener discretion is advised. Welcome back to Tale of the Manticore, Season 3. Like the creature from which it takes its name, Tale of the Manticore is a mashup, a crossbreeding between two different species of storytelling. Here you will find the unpredictability of old-school paper and dice games with the storycraft of a dark fantasy novel. No character is sacred, and none will be spared if the dice decide their fate is at hand. According to lore, the tail of a manticore is barbed with cruel iron spikes. There will be much pain in the days ahead. Last time on Tale of the Manticore. Chapter 33 is really about just one thing, the fight to escape from Doroth. A giant forest troll bars the exit, so the companions begin by trying to drive it off with missile fire. The plan doesn't accomplish much. In fact, it makes things worse, because it angers the monster and now there's a chance it will destroy the wooden stairs that lead from the cave mouth down to the forest floor. If that were to happen, the PC's predicament would become truly dire, and so the time for debate and strategy is over. They make a run for it, fighting as they go. The combat that ensues is a chaotic nail-biter. Achillea's glitter dust spell successfully blinds the troll, but it also does the same to several allies. And speaking of allies, the tide of battle turns again when one of the blink dogs that the PCs saved in episode 25 appears and joins the fight. The battle ends when the giant forest troll, against all odds, fails a morale check and flees into the woods. While injuries have been sustained, incredibly, no party members have been lost, and it even looks like one has been gained. I would have bet real money at the start of that fight that at least one of my PCs was going to die, and die horribly. I could envision the fight going any number of ways, but I did not expect that the giant troll would end up running away. RPGs really are a bottomless source of wonder, anxiety, and triumph, know what I mean? Now, it occurs to me that there just might be some folks out there who have a degree in RPG law, and they might fairly point out that the spell Glitter Dust does not just inflict a -4 penalty to those who fail their save against its effects. It also applies, by the book, the same penalty to armor class and saving throws. I overrode this in order to be consistent with my own mechanics. The spell's debuff effect is clearly due to its ability to inflict blindness, and not some other extra magical condition, and I've always used the rule that blindness causes a single penalty of -4 to attack, and that's all. Chapter 34, Part 1. Day 28. Afternoon. Mythic event meaning: attract elements. Party status: Achillea, 13 of 13 hit points. Cord, 3 of 18. Dureni, 16 of 16. Tentir, 15 of 15. Fairwind, 21 of 26. Supplies: the companions have 8 portions of food remaining. Spells available: Cord can cast. Slow poison. Still blind, Tentir slashed at the air in front of him, grunting with desperate effort. Tears streamed down his cheeks.
"It's gone, little mouse,"
said Dureni. Tentir seemed not to hear and cut the air once again with the sword of Lyrhane.
"Tentir, you can stop. The creature is gone."
What?
"We drove it off. It ran into the woods. We are safe."
Dureni went over to calm his brother until his vision returned. Meanwhile, Achillea crossed the broken gap in the stairs and walked over to Cord. The construct was standing by the well, supporting himself with one hand on its stony rim. He was looking into the forest in the direction the giant troll had fled. Cord's face was painted on and never showed any more or less emotion than a kind of mild pleasantness. But at this moment, Achillea could have sworn she saw concern and pain.
Oh, Cord,
She began, taking in his cracked leg and dented torso.
just look at what that monster did to you. Lean on me if you like. I'm here for you.
At that moment, there was a sound from a nearby tree, and Robin flew down from the upper branches to land on Cord's head. Not far off, Fairwind was crouching down over the bloodied shape of the blink dog, who had appeared from out of nowhere to help them fight the troll, and had almost paid with its life. Its snowy white fur was crimson with blood. When the cleric stroked it behind the ears, it whimpered and nuzzled his hand. Fairwind stowed his cudgel in his pack so that the handle stuck out over his shoulder. Then he slid both arms under the injured dog and stood up.
We should be away from this place before that devil decides to return,
He said. Nobody disagreed. The PCs are not going to risk another encounter with the troll by staying in Duroth to search the ruins outside. Instead, they'll head north, trying to put some distance between themselves and the monster while going in what they believe is the right direction. Actually, they don't really know where they should go, beyond that there are mountains to the north, and that those same mountains appear in some of Odok's sketches. By now, they strongly suspect that Odok Zygog never lived here, and that their decision to come was a mistake. Valkeen's directions have not been proven wrong, after all. Their destination, therefore, is probably somewhere to the northeast. But since the troll went east, wisdom dictates that they head north, to minimize the risk of another run-in. Of course, there is still a risk, and, I think that this region would likely be free of all hazards except for that giant troll. I mean, it's possible that it could coexist with other dangerous creatures, but I do think it's unlikely. With all that in mind, for the rest of this day, I will not roll for any wandering encounters. Since Cord is badly injured, and Fairwind is carrying the blink dog, I will rule that the party can only make 4 miles before they need to stop and make camp. So that takes care of day 28. But I think I might as well go ahead and make all the hex crawl rolls for the next day, too. There's nothing else that the narrative demands at this time. We begin with the weather. A 17 means day 29 will be a perfect summer day, bright and warm. Next up is Stumble Upon. I'm almost hoping I don't get a 1 or a 20 here. I wouldn't know how to interpret those at this time, but let's see what the dice gods have to say. A 13 is a bit ominous, but it means no result. I'll take it and thank them for it. Now it's time to roll for a wandering encounter. I'll say that this close to Duroth, specifically because the giant troll has made its lair there these past 7 years, that only on a roll of 6 on a d6 will there be any encounter. If there is, there'll be a 50% chance it's the troll itself, fully healed and ready to fight again. On a d6, I've got a 1. Alright, I interpret this as an extreme no. The terrain inclines, and the woods become thick with closely packed trees. A quick Google search tells me that beech trees can grow so close to each other that their branches and even trunks will occasionally fuse together. So this forest of beech is easily passable by the companions, who travel in single file, but it would be troublesome for the troll, simply because of its size. I think that once they enter into this new region, the companions effectively have a barrier between themselves and the troll, and so there will be no chance of another encounter with it going forward. Alright, I think it's almost time to get back to the narrative, but while the action is paused, I should go ahead and make rolls for Fairwind's inevitable Cure Light Wounds spells, 1 for each Cord and the Blink Dog. Cord will receive 4 extra points, and the dog will get bad luck, just 2. Chapter 34, Part 2, Day 29, Dawn. Mythic event meaning: attract elements. Party status: Achillea, 13 of 13 hit points. Cord, 8 of 18 after natural and magical healing. Dureni, 16 of 16. Tentir, 15 of 15. Fairwind, 22 of 26 after receiving 1 point of natural healing. The Blink Dog, 6 of 16 after natural and magical healing. Supplies: the companions have 4 portions of food remaining. Spells available: Achillea can cast Enlarge, Message, Glitter Dust, and Detect Evil. Cord can cast entangle, locate plants and animals, slow poison, and create water. Dureni woke Achillea with a grunt and a shake of her shoulder, and the moment her eyes opened, he immediately laid down to sleep without a word. Achillea rubbed her eyes and smiled at Cord, who sat a little ways off. When she opened her spellbook, the wooden construct limped over to sit silently beside her while she studied. Through the trees on the eastern horizon, a thin line of light showed where the sun would soon make its appearance. But for now, the forest hummed with the sounds of night creatures, and the moon still supplied the better part of the available light. As she flipped through the pages of her book of spells, the fireflies came out, winking and flickering and winking. They flew in random zigzags all around, and their presence cheered her. For no special reason, Achillea turned to the pages in her book containing spells that she had herself once written but had never understood. There in the peaceful dawn light, with the fireflies all around, one of her erstwhile incomprehensible spells opened its secrets to her. As the morning light crept closer, glowing brighter and brighter, she began to commit her new spell of Detect Evil to memory. She also decided to prepare the enchantment's Message and Enlarge, instead of her usual pair of Shrink spells, since that magic had failed her twice in the battle with the monster. By the time her companions had woken up and were arranging their things and stowing their bedrolls, she had every word memorized. Nearby, Dureni was portioning out half of the remaining Massenbell so they might break their fast, while Fairwind tended to Cord and the injured dog. The latter had taken a real liking to both Fairwind and Achillea, even though it had been by the sweat of Dureni's brow that it had been brought to safety. The elf had carried it all the way here from Duroth. The companions quietly crunched on Massenbell and drank from a cool spring that Cord produced from the ground, using his new ability. Altogether, it made for a small and simple, but surprisingly filling meal. Near the end of their breakfast, Tentir had looked from Cord to the dog, whose fur was still matted with blood. He asked a question to no one in particular.
Do you think we hurt that monster as badly as it hurt us?
His brow was furrowed as he was remembering how the creature's wounds had started healing right after they'd been inflicted. He wiped some crumbs from his mouth with his forearm, which now bore a long, jagged scar where a direwolf had bitten him. Since he spoke in Elvish, Fairwind and Cord could not understand the question. It was Dureni who replied.
I think we gave as well as we got.
He mused, and then added,
There's a dwarfish saying for this kind of situation. How does it go again? Da varung olte barna lofrask kerti nihe muluchanyuf. Sorry, my dwarvish is not very good.
Achillea and Tentir both asked at the same time.
What does it mean?
Dureni smiled a dry smile and answered.
In trading, you know you have reached a fair deal only when both sides are miserable.
Achillea didn't know what to make of the idiom, so she just sniffed and said,
I didn't know you could speak Dwarvish.
Dramatis Personae. Dureni. 10 years ago.
You know you've reached a fair deal when both sides are miserable,
muttered the old dwarf with a scowl. He motioned for a few others of his race to collect the bags and boxes that his visitors had brought.
Well, have you received all that you came for?
A half-dozen dwarves and an equal number of elves were congregated at a hillside stone-built trading post where they were exchanging goods as they did 2 or 3 times a year. As it was customary to speak the language of the hosts in such exchanges, the elves replied in Dwarvish.
Iron, gold, platinum, copper, and mercury, all accounted for,
said the primary negotiator, nodding. He was an elder with twin braids of gray hair that fell down on either side of his neck in front of his shoulders. Although the primary negotiator's real name was Raylear, he was called Valent Goat, or the Old Crow, by his companions, who were presently tasked with hauling away the various chests of metals and other elements the hill dwarves had brought. Dureni was there as a porter. He received a chest from a ruddy-faced dwarf who was at least half as wide as he was tall. A novice could never have guessed how heavy the chest would be, considering the ease with which the dwarven trader had lifted it. But this was not Dureni's first excursion. All the same, he strained under the effort.
Kaz,
grunted the dwarf. Dureni knew this word. It meant iron. He'd been studying Dwarvish for 8 years in preparation for his career as a trader. One day, his parents hoped he might lead a group as a primary negotiator, but for now, he was just a porter. Durrani had been making trips like this one for only 3 years, the blink of an eye in the career of an elf, and he already disliked the work, but he enjoyed the company of the dwarves, more or less, and had come to know all the members of this trading company by name. The one who had just handed him the chest was called Ardnor. Ardnor had once confessed to him that he would have preferred to have become a builder instead of a trader.
I would rather be making bridges and walls, or crafting doors and chests back home in the great workroom,
he had lamented. Durrani had wanted to confide in return that he too had doubts about a lifelong career in trading, but he'd held his tongue. Dwarven culture was not elven culture. This was a lesson that the old crow repeated several times per trip, and a shared personal secret did not necessarily invite reciprocity among the dwarves.
Of their culture, there is much to learn,
The old crow would add.
but that is why we practice our craft over decades.
Decades. Durrani did not want to carry iron chests for decades, nor did he want to negotiate the precarious rules, norms, and laws that made up the dwarven interaction for that long. He enjoyed the frequent travel, the company of the hill folk, and the challenge of the dwarven tongue. He also found the old crow to be a good leader and mentor, but he knew that this was not the life for him. It was on this journey, only his 12th since he'd embarked on the career, that he decided he would need to break the news to his mother and father. When he got home, he would tell them he needed to do something else. Perhaps he could be a sentry, like Barrand, or a hunter, like Sager or Mykif. He wasn't sure what his heart truly desired. He only knew that this was not it. I had been struggling to apply the event meaning attract elements ever since I rolled it up. My mind first went to the 4 elements, earth, air, fire, and water, but the best I could come up with was a rain dance, and I had zero idea about how to implement that. Next, I thought of story elements, but that felt a bit like a cop-out. In the end, the solution just fell on top of me by sheer luck. I'd been carrying around several dwarven expressions in my back pocket for a while, waiting for a chance to use them, and I found a chance when the PCs talked about the battle with the troll. That in turn gave me the idea to flesh out part of Durrani's backstory by giving him a failed career in trading, something I'd already established as something the Marsh Elf Society would have to include. But it wasn't until I started listing the goods exchanged, copper, iron, and gold, that I realized I was fulfilling the event meaning, attract elements. It's funny, periodic elements I had never considered. Anyway, I'm going to need a new pair from the Mythic tables, so where's my D100s? Here they are. Rolling for action. 86. Passion. And for subject? 65. Intrigues. For once I know exactly how to use this, and I might as well do that right away. Chapter 34. Part 3. 22 years ago. Somewhere in the woods near Summer Hill. Aldve was wandering through the woods, humming tunelessly, and bent over as he scanned the undergrowth for little purple flowers of a specific shape. These flowers, he knew, belonged to the plant that would yield Bat's Head root. If he could find some, he could complete a potion he'd been trying to perfect that would allow the imbiber to discard their corporeal form, transmute flesh to vapor, and move about as a cloud might do. It was late summer, and the sun was shining through the treetops. A mild gust of wind knocked some of the foliage loose from above, and it floated down all around like confetti. Aldve was so intent on finding the correct plant, he didn't even notice. In fact, when he came to a figure lying on the forest floor, he almost stepped on it.
Oh my,
exclaimed Aldve.
What have we here?
At his feet was a female elf, fast asleep. Her face was beautiful, and her slender form sublime. Her hair was so light blonde that it was almost white. She wore light armor made of leather, and there was a curved sword near her hand. It gave the impression that she had simply dropped to the ground in slumber. Aldve might have mistaken her for dead if it hadn't been for the steady rise and fall of her breast. When he bent down over her, upon his exclamations, the elf's eyelids fluttered open, and Alde was struck by the golden hue of her irises. Something transpired at that moment, and both elf and wizard froze. It was as though some kind of magic passed between them. They smiled foolishly at each other in warmth and delight, as the two were simultaneously stricken with pure, unbreakable, unexplainable love. And just like that, I've used my current event meaning, as I can confidently call that last scene an intriguing passion. And now I need a new set. No reason to delay. Here's the rolls. 18 and 6, which gives me Move Reality. Lucky day. I know what to do with this, too. But before I work it out in the narrative, there's one more roll I need to make for the day's hex crawl. It's one I skipped by earlier, and that's my foraging roll. Cord will spend his Locate Plants and Animals spell, as usual, to add the +1. So, using a d6, a 1 to 3 will mean success. Here's the roll. A 3. That's a winner. I'll say that with the construct's help, the PCs managed to kill a rabbit, which will provide enough food for each party member for one day. Chapter 34. Part 4. Day 29. Late afternoon. Mythic event meaning. Move Reality. Party status. The party status is unchanged, with the exception that Cord has used his spells of Locate Plants and Animals and Create Water.
How long do you think that animal intends to follow us?
Asked Dureni, frowning.
I think she intends to stay with us for good.
Came Achillea's reply.
She?
Of course. Didn't you notice?
Dureni blushed despite himself.
Of course not. Anyway, I would be glad if she went on her way.
Really? I like having her around.
It's another mouth to feed, Achillea.
She fought and bled for us, Dureni. Did you forget that part?
No, I know she did. But animals can be unpredictable.
Well, I predict that she's with us now.
Achillea turned out to have the right of things. The blink dog followed the companions all through the day, and, later in the afternoon, once again proved her usefulness by running down and killing a rabbit that Cord located. It was a good-sized jackrabbit, significantly larger than the one Tentir had killed earlier in their journey, and it would provide enough sustenance to maintain the entire group for a full day if they could preserve the meat. To this end, it was decided among the party members to build a small campfire when they eventually stopped for the night to cook their catch. This would make the meat last longer and would also allow Fairwind to concentrate his powers on healing those members of the group that were still wounded instead of preserving their food. Evening came on gradually, with the post-sunset sky visible through the ranks of beech trees. It made for a striking pattern of alternating orange and black. Fatigued and footsore, the companions found a good spot to make their camp and set about arranging their bedrolls and building a small fire. Once that was done, Dureni found a pair of Y-shaped sticks and jammed them into the earth to either side of the fire, while Tentir skinned, cleaned, and spitted the jackrabbit. The smell from the cooking meat was far too appealing for the companions not to eat a little of the catch. But good sense prevailed, and the majority of the rabbit was wrapped in broad leaves in the elvish fashion and packed to be consumed during the following day's march. Still hungry, everyone set about their evening activities. Dureni sharpened his sword, Tentir rechecked the fletching on his arrows. Cord, with Robin on his shoulder, found a place to sit and began his usual nighttime vigil, and Fairwind read from his prayer book. Achillea sat cross-legged with the blink dog's head on her lap. She scratched her behind the ears, fondly.
You should have a name,
she said, partly to herself and partly to the animal.
But what kind of a name would suit a special creature like you?
Achillea stared into the flames of the campfire, with its colors competing in their vibrant dance, and then, suddenly, she knew.
Your name shall be Flicker. Do you like that name?
The dog looked up without lifting her head from Achillea's lap, her ice-blue eyes seeming to understand. When the animal's tail began to thrash back and forth in pleasure, Achillea smiled and said,
Then Flicker it is.
Thank you for listening to Tale of the Manticore. If you would like to support the show, there are many ways to help. You can recommend it online or to friends. You can like and repost episode announcements on social media. You can pick up one of my offerings on DriveThruRPG or a Tale of the Manticore t-shirt at beararts.store, or you can rate or review the show on your podcatcher of choice. These things go such a long way to spread the word. So to all the folks who continue to show up with their support, I'm eternally grateful. At this point, I'd like to read a listener review. This one was left by Moses TK on Apple Podcasts. Moses TK writes, "Make mine Manticore. This is the podcast equivalent of comfort food. I eagerly await each episode. Settle into a comfy chair and join the adventure." Make mine Manticore. Oh, that's got a seriously good ring to it. I feel like it should be on a t-shirt or something. Anyway, hopefully for as long as you've got a comfy chair, I'll be making more Manticore. Thank you very much for the kind review, Moses. Next, I'd like to thank my core cast of voice talent. Kyellen, Kevin Berenger, and David Cooper played Dureni, Tentir, and Fairwind, and as always, elevate this show with their characterizations. I'd also like to introduce a newcomer to the cast. Playing the roles of both the old dwarf and the younger dwarf, Artnor, from Dureni's flashback, it's James, from the Myth and Moon, hybrid audio drama and actual play podcast. If you haven't yet discovered Myth and Moon, you can sample the show at solo-roleplayersnetwork.com. Finally, returning to the show as Aldve is Andrew Fling, whose voice always sounds just right in the mix. A big thanks to all 5 actors who contributed to this episode. For those curious to learn more about Tale of the Manticore, I keep a blog where I post all kinds of show and RPG-related stuff, like art, maps, tables, crafts, and show notes. You can find it at taleofthemanticore.com. To get in touch with me, I'm at solo-roleplayersnetwork.com, taleofthemanticore.bluesky.social, Tale of the Manticore podcast on Instagram, or taleofthemanticore@gmail.com. The adventure will continue on the next episode of Tale of the Manticore. It's the story where chaos rolls.